Well, thanks, Scott, and good morning, everyone. Let me shift gears and talk about weather and actually probably some relevant things to what Scott's been talking about in terms of the management for dried beans. But the I think to cut to the chase and the long and the short of it is here, we do have some more unsettled weather to deal with in the short term, but longer term, it's looking better here, especially as we move into next week. And I'll start on that here in just a minute. But looking at the past week, we've had in terms of the meteorology, we talked about these so-called closed lows or cutoff low features in the jet stream, and we've we've had several of those visits this particular spring. We had one early in the past week, and that was what was responsible for the very unusually cool, wet weather, and again unsettled with you could probably put bold or an underline with that, but especially a week ago, we really it really slowed things down with the cool, wet weather. But again, it's gradually improved during the week, but still on the left-hand side here, looking at our mean temperatures from normal, this shouldn't come as any surprise. Much below normal. Most parts of the state, 8 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. It was the coolest really week that we've had of the growing season thus far for much of the state. A little bit milder as you go north, but still consistently below normal for the week. On the right-hand side, looking at our precipitation totals, they varied widely. And with that, again, with that upper air set up, and especially with the weather system early in the week, and that's what most of the precipitable water you see here is from. We did see much of the state with at least a half an inch, some cases more than 1 inch, especially as you can see in the green there for portions of northern lower and western lower Michigan. And that contrasted with areas in the north, especially the western UP, where we basically went dry for the whole week again. And I'll show you one of the results of that here, impacts of that here in a moment. But again, it depended on location and where you were in the state here, but certainly cooler than normal. Soil moisture as a result of again of this recent precipitation and earlier patterns. These are percentiles looking at the top 3 feet of the profile, and they vary widely. And from excess moisture with the greens here, you can see that in northwestern lower, portions of northern lower. But there has been a distinct increase in the amount of yellow and brown on this map, indicating lower than 50% 50th percentiles. There are a couple locations of note here that, as I look at trends here, one of them is in the far southwestern corner of the state, where we have seen persistent dryness and areas being missed by previous rainfall events. That's an area that we're watching, and at least the dryness there is on the increase. The other one is up in Upper Michigan and central and especially western Upper Michigan, where we've had issues with dryness in the last several weeks and last couple months that were reduced and dissipated given heavy rain, but it's been dry again. And so that's another area that we're watching. We continue to also watch, of course, we've the highlight here with soil moisture in terms of dryness has been portions of the Saginaw Valley, which is relevant for many of you here today with the topic. That's a long area of long-term dryness that goes all the way back to this past fall. But fortunately, we have had some rain in the last couple of weeks that have helped keep things at least stabilized. But that's another area that we're watching here. I mentioned the temperature pattern here for the season. This is a graphic depicting daily max and min temperatures. Those are in the blue bars here, the observed max and min temperature going back to the beginning of March through the last couple of days. This is for Grand Rapids, but it's pretty representative of the state. And the reason I wanted to show this was really to look at this relative to climatology, because the brown area here that's sort of in the middle depicts the climatological normal max temperature. That's the top brown, and then the bottom brown there for that day. That's the normal low temperature. And what you can see from this, again, at Grand Rapids and for much of the state, it's been at least normal, if not milder than normal, for a lot of the growing season up until the last week. And you can see that shows up really pretty well here with that cool week that we've had. And again, hence the comment, that was the coolest 1 week period that we've had. But as we look ahead here, this will be temporary, and we are moving to back to a warmer than normal pattern here before not too long. Degree day totals for the season. I've got several maps on here that depict different time frames, but the outside two are looking at seasonal totals going back to March. So this is more relevant for our overwintering crops, like our wheat crop, also our forages, our alfalfa, and so forth. The one in the middle now, I'm adding, and we'll switch over to this. These are the corn degree, the 8650 cutoff corn uh, degree day totals. And those start on the 1st of May. So note that they're two different periods here, and they tell a little bit different story. The on the far right, looking at departures from normal for our longer season, our overwintering crops. We're still in the southern part of the state, still running several days, calendar days ahead of normal with surpluses. Same is true in western upper Michigan, but areas of central upper and northern lower now have fallen back, given the cool week we've had, a couple days behind, but not too far away from the normals. Now, in the middle, looking at those 8650 cutoff units, again, that's with for looking at corn production here, you can see that over Michigan and over much of the Corn Belt, the Eastern Corn Belt, certainly Central and Eastern Corn Belt, we are lagging a little bit behind normal. And that's a direct result, again, of this past cool week that we've had. And given the forecast, I would expect to see some changes in this probably, certainly, if not next week, but the following week as we move into a warmer type of weather pattern. On the weather map this morning here, looking at things, more unsettled weather, and boy, we've overused that term it seems like for some time here, but there's again another low pressure trough aloft, and that's leading to what led to the rain that we had yesterday. We still have rain with that system now, mostly across northern upper. These are radar depiction here, and it's a fairly damp, cool, cloudy, somewhat gloomy start of the day. For precipitation with the weather system that went through yesterday and up till the present, you can see that it varies by place or by location, but some quarter-inch totals. Most of it was pretty light, with no precipitation in the far northern part of the state. But across the lower peninsula, you can see some quarter-inch amounts in western lower, and then portions of central lower with lower amounts other than that. And again, here locally, it's been mainly a few hundredths to a tenth of an inch or so. So not much in the way of water at most locations. We will see during the day today that rain continue in the northern part of the state off and on for the next several hours with some drizzle or maybe a couple sprinkles in other areas, but we're not looking for certainly any heavy rain here today. Our weather map this morning, looking at that, here's the area of low pressure that's responsible for the current precipitation. It's now in southern Ontario, and again, some of that moisture is lingering back into Michigan. That will continue to be the case during the daylight here, and then everything should come to an end by this evening and then overnight and be drier. High temperatures today generally in the 60s with a few low 70s in areas that see a little more sun. And I'm thinking now about, again, the Upper Peninsula, probably western and central upper Michigan will have more sunshine there. But generally a couple degrees below normal here for today for most places. By tomorrow morning, that weather system moves off. However, we've got another weather system. This is the next one to influence us. It's actually a combination. We have an area of low pressure down over the Ohio Valley. That's going to probably stay just south of Michigan. Any precip with that probably will remain south of us. But note here up to the north, there's a cold front, and that's headed southward into the Great Lakes, and that will set off some scattered showers and maybe a couple rumbles of thunder, especially during the afternoon. And I'm thinking here it would be a north to south movement during the day on Friday, but especially during the middle and latter part of the afternoon is when we would see the greatest chances with this. Not a heavy rainfall producer, probably a couple tenths or less. Where rain falls, some areas will definitely remain dry with this. This is not a widespread type of system at all, but it's a cold front. There is some cooler air behind that. So while we will see high temperatures a little bit warmer tomorrow into the 70s for highs, they'll fall back again here, at least for the early part of the weekend, but that's temporary. Here are, and I mentioned the cold front moving through. You can see it makes progress southward into lower Michigan here by tomorrow night with some showers out ahead of that. That's what I just mentioned here. And then by Saturday morning, clears the southern part of the state, and we move in with cooler and drier air. So on Saturday, looking mainly, well, partly cloudy to partly sunny skies, with the wind will shift around to the north and west. High temperatures generally in the upper 60s and low 70s, or more 60s probably on Saturday. But that will be the coolest day of the weekend because beginning on Sunday, we just start to see a warm up, a noticeable warm up continue or start, and then into the early part of next week. Now, speaking of that, speaking of next week, if we look here, I mentioned big changes coming, and the background here, jet stream flow, both forecast for Saturday, and look at that pattern. That's a that's an upper air pattern that we would see in the cold season, almost in the winter or certainly in the spring. It's not what we typically see in summer, and it's very, very highly amplified. But another big troughing feature. We've had several of those here over the last several weeks. Well, here's another one, but it is progressive and it will be moving out. And then by next Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, notice that it's replaced by a ridge. So that's what's going to lead to this big change in certainly in temperatures, also a little bit to some extent in precipitation. The insets here that I have in both, these are the projected temperature, surface temperature anomalies, and you can see that for Saturday, cooler than normal is indicated, the blues here over much of Michigan and the region, while Tuesday, the opposite is true. We've got a big area of warmer than normal. So that I think really illustrates well where we're headed. And we should see our maximum temperatures, especially this will be noticeable, that will recover into the 70s by Sunday, and then probably some 80s for high temperatures again. Certain, if not on a Monday, definitely on Tuesday and Wednesday. We may even see some mid 80s. Low temperatures, generally in the 40s, increasing into the 50s this weekend, and then continuing next week. So I guess the other bottom line is we will see a taste of some summer conditions. And just as importantly, after Friday, for precipitation, probably no chance of any rainfall or significant rain until at least the middle of next week. So we are looking at an extended dry period, and we will see, and back to Scott's discussion here about we should see things change rapidly with field work, soils drying out. Our PET rates will go back to above average. Here's the total precipitation forecast for the next 7 days up through next Thursday morning. And for Michigan, you can see lots of light colors, even some no colors here, indicating a drier than normal week for much of the state, especially across lower Michigan, less than a quarter of an inch. And the precipitation totals you see here, much of that is what's falling today and maybe tomorrow. So just not much in the way of precipitation here in our guidance. It's going to be drier than normal with ultimately a gradual warming trend to next week. And then finally, our potential evapotranspiration and water demand. Given those warmer temperatures, especially coming at the end of the weekend and early next week, our PET rates will be going back up to well above average values for the time of the year. You can see the daily averages here if we look at the whole 7 day period through next Wednesday night, in some cases up to 2/10 of an inch per day. That's a pretty respectable, normal, even a little bit above normal summertime value. So there will be major changes here, again, or more rapid changes in soil conditions, soil moisture conditions, with enhanced evaporation. So this should be a major opportunity for most people to get back if they've been out because of last week's cold, wet weather. This will definitely make a difference as we move into next week. Medium range forecast guidance here, both the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks, if we look at the jet stream pattern, they suggest troughing out over Western North America with ridging over the east, And I think most of us all appreciate we have ridging over us. We're probably going to be warmer than normal, and that certainly is where the temperature forecast goes. It also calls for, as you can see here in the lower right-hand corner, with precipitation. Michigan's somewhat in between an area projected to be drier than normal to our east, and then one somewhat wetter than normal to our west. And both the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks are somewhat similar. That's certainly warmer than normal, but very important here, and that is, and I almost showed this, but it's I won't out of respect for my profession, the forecast models here as we look out in the medium range are giving a lot of different answers. And what I my comment on this one would be is that when we see those differences in our forecast guidance between different models, your confidence in the outcome or in the direction is definitely less than it would be normally or should be. So I would say that the forecast again, take this one with a grain of salt a little bit, but remember that because of differences in the forecast guidance, I would say it is overall the confidence here, especially as we go out to that 2 week period and 3 week period, is low. And I keep that one in mind because again, it's important to note how much consistency there is with the guidance. And unfortunately, in this particular instance, there isn't much. That many times suggests that we will be seeing yet another pattern change in the jet stream, leading to something different. So, yes, next week, definitely high likelihood of summer-like conditions, warm and probably a little bit drier than normal. But beyond that, it's still there's some question marks, and we'll keep an eye on that and then have a look next week as to see if we see anything more definitive. But right now, there's unusually high disagreement between the models. That's never a good thing to see, but we do once in a while. It happens, and this is one of them. So summarizing here again, more cloudy, unsettled weather here for the short term, but definitely improving as we move into the weekend, especially the latter weekend into early next week, with drying trend, and also certainly a warming trend in earnest by the end of the weekend. And then again, the grain of salt and the caveat for our medium range guidance.